When it comes to new construction homes, one of the hardest decisions I think people have to make is inventory or going through the build process. I think there's some positives to both, and there's a little bit of negative to both. So it's not that one is right and one is wrong. I think they're both just different. And I want to try and outline some decision frameworks for you to help you make the right decision that might help as you're thinking about building or buying from a builder here in DFW. And there's so much that goes into this. So let me try and frame this as best as I know how. Because again, both of them can be super great and both of them can be terrible if you pick the wrong one for your situation. So we see it play out both ways. So if we haven't met before, my name is Zach. My team and I, we sell new construction real estate here in DFW. That's all we do. And if I can help you in any way, I would love and be honored to be a part of your transaction and your journey here to buy a home in DFW. So let's talk about the inventory side first. So I want to clarify some things on what an inventory home is and what it isn't. What some people think is this is a bad deal, right? Like something's wrong with it. It was discounted. It's less flexible. It's something happened to it. And that's not always the case. So inventory is just anything that is not necessarily leftover. It means scheduled, right? So in every community, most builders, depending on who they are going to do a mix of inventory homes that are scheduled so that they make all the selections, they get everything ready, and then they sell them to you, and to be built options where you get to come in and make all of the choices. Because what they want a good variety to be able to be flexible in anybody's timeline, right? So that's the base point of it. Now, there are some times when builders get inventory homes back that they weren't scheduling or they weren't thinking they were going to get back because of a cancellation or a bust, right? And that could be any number of reasons. For somebody couldn't qualify for financing, to their job relocated them, to any number of reasons could be a reason why the builder is getting that home back. You can kind of always tell, like if you walk in, especially as you start to learn inventory and you learn builders and you learn some of their styles, you can tell which ones, like if you go see a home that is got a ton of customization options in it and it looks way different than anything else they have, there's a good chance that was a bust and that wasn't one that they were planning on getting back. And so that might be one that you could find a little bit more of a deal on. So that's kind of the inventory route, right? So they're always going to carry, 1, 2, and sometimes 5 or 6, depending on the market, depending on the builder and the neighborhood. They're always going to carry a couple of those inventory homes, usually that they can close on within the next 30 to 60 days. And they just kind of keep a rolling calendar. So if you're needing something a little bit quicker, inventory is the route to go, right? Everything has already been pre-selected. Everything is kind of already baked into the price. So you know kind of what you're getting yourself into before you really start going down that road. And again, it doesn't mean that they're not flexible. It just means that they're flexible in a little bit different way. They're getting closer to completion. Now, on the flip side, on a to be built, some people think that this means, hey, we have total customization, we have absolute control, and we're going to get the perfect outcome. And truthfully, this is not the case either. You're still going to be limited on your selections, right? You're only able to do, for most builders, they're not going to make custom changes. So it's like, hey, if this is in the catalog of like a option, we can do it. But you want to bump this room 5 feet this way, or you want to add this over here. Most production builders are not going to say yes to that. There's a few that are kind of pushing more toward the semi-custom and custom side that might say yes to it. It's going to, you're going to pay the price for it. But for the most of them, if it doesn't already exist within their catalog, it's not going to be a customization option. And then on the control side, that's relative, right? Like, yeah, you have somewhat control over the timeline, looking at probably 6 to 8 months. So that gives you more flexibility, but that doesn't mean that you get to say, hey, I want to be absolutely done by this date and I can't close. It's still going to follow their production timeline. And of course, it does not mean a perfect outcome, and you're not going to get a perfect outcome on inventory or on a build. New is not perfect, which is why we're always, one of the things we always try and advocate for is, regardless of the builder, regardless of the price point, I want you to get your third-party inspections just to make sure everything is good. You have your peace of mind, and then that things get addressed as they come up and can be taken care of. Because the reality is, on the build side, you might be looking at longer timelines. For some people, it's a lot of decisions. I think you take for granted the decisions that you're going to make, right? So it's not only is it the floor plan, but it's the structural options. It's the design center, like, which is a very long appointment. It's brick and stone, which is surprisingly one of the hardest things. Like every house we've built, that was one of the hardest things that my wife and I had to agree on, was what were we going to do for our brick and what were we going to do for our stone. And we spent many a Saturday afternoon driving all over DFW looking at different bricks, because you see it on a piece of paper, or you see one sample is totally different than what it looks like when it shows up on an actual house. So that's one of those ones that it's very hard to nail down. So you got all those decisions to make. You've got the longer timeline, and building a home is one of the only industries that you can watch the entire process happen, right? Like we don't get to go to the Ford plant and watch them build the car that we're going to buy, or anything, or the clothes that we're going to make. So like you get to watch the whole process unfold. And to be honest, it can be a little bit stressful because there's a lot that can go wrong. There's a lot that'll happen. You'll be like, I don't understand why this is going the way this is. So more choices doesn't always make for a better experience. So which way is best for who? So I'm going to give you my thoughts on inventory. Like, hey, here's kind of my sentiment on why I would pick an inventory home. So number one, you're pretty much locked in on where the price is going to finish, right? So, hey, if they have the inventory home listed and it's listed for $520,000, well, that's based on all the selections that they've already made. So we're negotiating from that point, right? So we're working toward that. The other benefit to that is most builders are going to use probably the same amount, the same dollar amount or same percentage amount in terms of an incentive. Now, when we look at an inventory home, we don't have to necessarily negotiate for the design incentive because it's already baked into the price. So really all we're negotiating for is the price that we want to get to and whatever the closing cost or the interest rate buy down or incentive that they're doing there. So it gives you a little bit more to work with on that end. The other person I would say, like the other thing on the inventory side is, hey, you need a flexible, or you need a quicker timeline, right? Like your job is telling you, hey, you're moving to Dallas and we need you there in the next 60 days. Okay, we need to look at inventory because we don't have the capacity to build, right? You also are going to see more certainty of payment sooner. So here's what I mean by that. When you see builders advertising these rate promos like a 4.99 or a 3-2-1 buy down or any sort of stuff like that, 95% of the time what they're doing is they're doing that on an inventory home because they know what the interest rate market is at that point. They don't necessarily advertise that on a to be built because there's no way for them to know what the market's going to look like in 6 months. So you're wanting that certainty of payment. You're wanting to lock in that rate. You're not sure, hey, do we think rates are going to fluctuate one way or the other? The inventory is kind of the way to go. I've seen, we've pulled some incredible deals recently on inventory homes. Here's what I also say. If you value, hey, speed over the idea of customization, inventory would be a place that I would look because you're going to have a lot of leverage, especially as those builders have in some neighborhoods, they have a lot of inventory. They have a lot of things sitting that they need to move. You're going to find advantage in that space because what's happening is, especially as homes get completed, like they're accounting for that, but they're having to pay for that every month. They're paying the holding costs, they're paying the electricity, the water, they're paying all of those things. And the longer they hold that, the more advantage you're going to pick up as a buyer. Whereas on a build side, those are calculated in and they know that they've got the cost of the build. The other thing to know is builders want, like the term we'll hear often is a churn rate, right? So we need to sell these homes so that we can continue to start our next project. And yes, they need to make money and they have to have good margins. But oftentimes what's more important than the margin is getting that money and that capital back so that they can go redeploy it into something else. So you value speed over customization. You want a certainty of a payment. You want the certainty of a neighborhood. You're looking, hey, we need to be in to get our kids in schools. And inventory homes to me are rewarded with people who have decisive decision making. Like, hey, you know what you want, you find what you want, and then you're ready to lock and load and we go get the deal done. And you're done within 30 to 60 days, depending on your timeline. That's who I would say my inventory homes are for. Who I would say, like, if you're looking at this, exactly, we really want to build. Okay, like let's go through the whole process. This is people who have some flexibility that are like, hey, we have some timing in our housing situation. Hey, our lease isn't up for another year. We're moving into the area. We're whatever we're doing. You have some flexibility. I will also say, in terms of if you have a home to sell, a build, like not an inventory, a build is probably the best option because most builders do not want to take a contingency on an inventory home. Now, let me give a caveat on this. you're selling your house, you have it under contract, you have a buyer in place, and you're waiting on them to close. That's a very different contingency conversation on a builder than like, oh, hey, we just listed our house, or we need to list our house and we don't know when it's going to sell. The buyer under contract, yeah, they're probably going to take that contingency. The we need to sell, probably not. They're going to probably try and push you toward a build. So you have flexibility. That would be number one. You want a very specific layout or a very specific design, and you can tolerate the decision-making process. You also have to have a toleration or an appetite for the expanse of how do I say this? Like you're flexible in your budget. That's probably the best way I know how to say it. Because like, so for example, on the inventory home, let's say it's listed at $515, and hey, we're going to negotiate. We're going to get it down to $499, and you're going to get your closing costs, and you're going to close, and we're done, right? Well, easy. The challenge on the to be built side is you have your base price of whatever they list the home for. So like if you'll see it online, you'll see like prices, starting at, $410 or whatever. Well, then you add in all your structural options, all your design options, all your lot premiums. And then all of a sudden that $410 house has now become $495 or $500. And you weren't accounting for that, right? So that can be a little bit difficult. So you need to be able to account for that. The other thing you need is a little bit of flexibility in terms of money available to run through this transaction, because it fluctuates differently. So on an inventory home or a quick move-in home, you're going to make one earnest money deposit at the time of contract. It's different for every builder, anywhere, $5,000, $10,000, $12,000, depending on your purchase price. And that's going to get credited to you at the time of closing. It's one singular deposit. On a build, a lot of builders now are collecting multiple deposits throughout the process. Again, all of that money is going to be credited to you on your closing or toward your down payment, but you just have to be liquid enough to make that, to work with that flexibility. Because what they're going to want an initial deposit when you sign that contract, and then they're probably going to want an additional deposit based on your design selections. All of them do it differently. Some of them will say, hey, it's 50% of design selection. So if you spend $25,000 in design, well, then they want an additional $12,500, or it's 25% of this overage, or it's extra for a lot premium. But just know you're going to have to be a little bit more liquid in your finances in order to be able to, satisfy those deposit requirements. Pro tip on both of them: deposits are almost always negotiable, right? So we can ask for a reduction in that money. Some of them will say yes, some of them will say no. You can also ask to negotiate a payment plan on that deposit. Now, if you're closing in 45 days, they may not want to do a long drawn out payment process for that deposit. That doesn't make sense for them, doesn't make sense for you. But if you're building for 6 months, it's like, hey, well, can we structure this where we give you this up front and then we kind of pay it out? Again, it all goes into credit toward you at the end. I will tell you that your contracts are going to read that money is non-refundable. So if you're making this decision to build or buy from an inventory, you better be sure that that's the house you want, because your contract is going to read, hey, this is a non-refundable purchase. If you choose not to go forward, we're keeping your money. Have we seen circumstances where they've been a little bit lenient on that? Yes, but you're never going to get that in writing. So you want to build, you want the specific layouts. You can tolerate the timeline. You can tolerate the variables. You can tolerate watching a chaotic mess become a house, and you're comfortable making a lot of decisions. You have a house to sell. Again, this is a project that you're agreeing to. It's a 6 to 8 month, sometimes 10-month project, depending on what the builder and the size of your house. The other thing to know is they're probably gonna split your incentives. So basically you're gonna have money toward design and structure, and then you're gonna have money. You need to make sure that you still have money in there somewhere to help offset some of the closing costs, potentially do a rate buy down. So you're looking at that like, well, who gets the better deal? It's not like that. You're getting the same, probably similar amounts of dollars allocated. It's just being used in a different way compared to somebody who is buying an inventory. The other thing to note that is super hard that we have to navigate is, as incentives and pricing fluctuates, if you see a home, like if you're going through the build process, it's a long time, and you see, hey, they start advertising this rate, or they start advertising this promo, they're probably not going to give you whatever they're doing at the time. You agreed to, hey, whatever you got at the time of contract. And because on the builder side, their logic is, well, if it gets worse, we're not coming and asking you to renegotiate. So you might, very slim chance, like, hey, if they're doing a rate promo, they might be able to get you into a locked rate, but I would not plan on it, right? So you're gambling on what the market's going to be when that home is complete, and whatever incentives you get at the time of contract are probably what you're going to keep. You can ask, but I just want to set the right expectation that if you're probably going to get a no if you're asking to renegotiate throughout the process. So you gotta figure out, timeline, rate exposure, emotional fatigue. Like building a home, there's a lot of ups and downs and a lot of things that have to be decided. And I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. So if you're curious and you're like, hey, I don't even know, Zach, where do we start? We're going to throw our QR code for our website right here. That'll let you just browse. Like, honestly, you can browse inventory homes, you can browse builders, you can browse floor plans, whatever you need. And then when you're ready, you and I can have a conversation to kind of navigate what makes the most sense for you and your family as you plan and go through this process. Now, on the build side, rough math, I usually tell people, hey, you're probably going to spend anywhere between 12 and 15 to 17% of the base price to get the home you want in that particular neighborhood. So you need to be budgeting for that accordingly. Again, they're going to carry all the risk. They're going to make all the, you're not getting a loan on this unless you did like something custom and we were doing a one-time close construction loan. They're doing all of that, but they're going to ask you to have some more skin in the game. There's going to be some flexibility. And when they start that contract, they're going to pick an arbitrary date. And they're going to say, hey, we're going to be done with this house, May 31st. And you're like, okay, cool. And then the process is going to start slowly moving along and, hey, we're going to hit the spring weather and it's going to get delayed, or stuff is going to show up and then they're going to pull it back. And then really those timelines don't start to solidify until they get your home, finished and completed, right? You start seeing cabinets and countertops and stuff like that go in. That's when usually most builders will say, hey, we're in our 60-day-ish window. They can kind of start confidently telling you when we're going to reach closing. But it's not until we get to that point that they can do that. So neither path is good. Neither path is better than the other. There's pros and cons to both, and we help with both directions. I would say if you're looking for speed and you're looking for the best deal possible, we probably want to go look at an inventory. If you're looking for more like, hey, I want to make this my own, then let's go talk about a build job, right? How much, what's the real timeline you're looking at? How much uncertainty can you handle? What direction do you lean? Again, we help people with both. And so I'm not saying one is right, one is wrong. You just need to understand where you're going to get the best value for the goal that you are trying to accomplish, not the goal that your neighbor's trying to accomplish. Once you pick the right lane for you, the process gets so much simpler. We can narrow it down. We can focus on builders. We can get you in the community, and you just kind of get to run through that process. And I like doing both. But yeah, if you want speed and you're wanting certainty, we got to definitely look at inventory because we're finding some really good deals there. If you're wanting, customization, we need to look at the build route, and just know you negotiate those differently. Again, on the inventory side, hey, we're asking about price, we're asking about closing cost incentives, we're asking about some things like that. On the build side, they're not negotiating on base price and structural options because those are what they are. They're negotiating on the incentives on top of that, the lot premiums, the included features. You're also not going to the design center and being like, hey, can we get this floor cheaper? No, because they're just going to tell you, no, that's not what we do, right? So both avenues. And if you're going to do this, work with somebody, please, that spends time in the space, that understands how to navigate this and how to guide you as best as you possibly can. So if you have questions, of course, contact information always at the bottom. We would be honored to help you with your decision, whether you're here in DFW or you're seeing this outside of DFW and coming into our market. I'm here to help and be a resource any way we can. So decision focused, write it out, pros and cons, and then that's how you ultimately avoid doing something that you might regret. So appreciate your time. We'll see you guys in our next video.